Hello, everyone. We are recording this webinar today, RAMP 2025. My name's Georgy Jamieson, and I'm a broadcaster and I'm a podcaster, and I am the podcast producer and host of the Radio Academy podcast. And I was also part of the very first RAMP cohort in 2022. So we're going to introduce a panel very shortly of friend of mine from the 2022 cohort, Glyn, Andy from 23, and Naomi from 24. But first, I want to introduce you to Fran Plowright and Adele Cross. Now, Fran is founder and curator of Meet a Mentor, and she delivers training programs for young creatives, and she is going to be the new RAMP lead for 2025. And Adele is an award-winning breakfast producer at One Extra, recently made a fellow of the Radio Academy. She is our head of judges for 2025. So Fran, I'd like just you to start first, say a few words, welcome everyone, and just talk a little bit about the scheme, just outline what RAMP is, please.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you so much. So yes, hello everybody, I'm Fran and I'm delighted to be working with RAMP this year, the Radio Academy and the mentoring programme, and I will be leading it for 2025. And I mean, you've probably read the blurb if you're here, but top line, the programme is all about pairing you with a bespoke mentor who works in the industry. We're getting a steer from the applications about what you'd like, but ultimately we will, Adele and the judges will pull together what we hope is going to be a great combination for somebody to work with you over 6 months. I think for me, the very important point of mentors is it's somebody who is neither your line manager, nor a peer, nor your mother or best friend. So there's somebody who's there to support you as a critical friend, but they're not going to either tell you everything you do is brilliant, and they're also not line managing you, so it's not performative. So it's a really safe space to work with somebody and be really honest about where you're at. And I think the more honest you can be about this when you come in, the more you'll get out of the programme. And I'm sure that the panel will talk a lot more about that because you're going to hear from people who have been on the programme. What it comprises, as you will have probably read, is that you'll get 6 months of what I hope is really quality programming. You'll get 6 one-to-one sessions with your mentor. You'll get a bit of an induction and training in terms of how best to get the most out of that. We have some in-person sessions, the induction, so you can get to know everybody. You'll be paired with a peer network, so we'll very carefully curate kind of you and the rest of the group so that hopefully you'll get a lot out of each other as well and really be able to support each other. We will programme some what I hope will be really interesting seminars and professional development sessions, more about that later, which hopefully you will really enjoy. There will be some resources online to come back to and some notes. And also we'll be running some action learning sets. And if you don't know about what they are, very top line, it's about a space to come together and problem solve with a bit of coaching and steering thrown in. You bring the problem. In each set, there are a certain amount of problems that can be solved, and you use yourself and the room and your peers to support you on that process. So ultimately, it's just bringing in different opinions, but ultimately, hopefully problem solving whilst you're going about it. That's paraphrasing it. Hopefully once you're on board, we can tell you a bit more about how that would work. But I run lots of mentoring programs, and I've done this for a long time, as well as other stuff around the audio, TV, podcasting and content creation industry, and both at sort of entry level, mid-level and beyond. And I'm really excited to be working with you and hopefully supporting you on your journey. There will also be opportunity to get one-to-one support from me and ask questions as you go along the way. So what we hope you're doing is coming into a very welcoming and supportive community that will stand you in really good stead for whatever it is that you know you want to do, or by the end of the programme, know more about what you'd like to do with your next steps, and so that there are no barriers to hopefully doing that. And you have a cheerleader group of friends who you will carry along with you, and professional peers, which hopefully will be there forever for the rest of your careers. So I'll stop and I'm going to hand to Adele. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the webinar and really looking forward to meeting some of you if you decide to apply. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Fran. Adele, lovely to see you. Thank you again to you as well for joining the webinar. Our head of judges for 2025. Just tell us a little bit about the judging process when people apply, please.
Well, first of all, thank you for giving up your lunchtime to spend time with us. It's a glorious thing. And again, to Fran's point about having a cheerleader group of friends, that's really what this is about. So essentially, I'm here to make sure that the process is transparent and it's clear. And it's also going to be thorough. So what I would say is when you apply, be fully honest with yourself as well as with us. So if you are ambitious, if you are creative, if you have even some insecurities and some worries, be honest with yourself and kind of put it all out there, because this is where we will then find out how you work, what makes you tick, and how we can make things work for you. The nuts and bolts of the judging process is that basically we will make sure that at least 3 people will have different people will have seen your application or interviewed you at any time during the process. So there won't be any opportunity, hopefully, for any bias or any problems in that respect. We'll make sure that it's clear, make sure that it's honest, and also, I know we all say this, but make sure it's fun. So I'd suggest if you can come to this with creativity, come with an open mind. It might be that we'll match you with someone if you're successful that you wouldn't even have thought of, but there'll be some kind of method to our madness. And I'll say the third thing is, again, you will have such a network of people that can support you and encourage you and sort of say, oh, don't try this or try that. And we're here as judges to make sure that process works. And we'll make sure we're here as the RAMP Academy to make sure that you're supported in every way. Again, thank you for joining us. We're very excited. I've been on this since it started. So to see how it's grown, developed and blossomed is really, really exciting. So thank you so much, and take it away, Georgie.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Fran and Adele. That's lovely. Right, let's bring the panel in, please, now. So we've got Glyn Tansley, who is a BBC content editor, and he is from the 2022 cohort that I was on. So lovely to see Glyn again. We've got Andy Logue, who is a producer at Heart Scotland, based up in Glasgow. Andy is from the 2023 cohort. Oh, and I should say Glyn is based in Cardiff as well. So we've tried to cover ground when it comes to looking all across the UK. And Naomi Oiku, who is from the 2024 cohort, and she is a freelance producer. So we've got a bit of BBC, bit of commercial, bit of freelance in there as well. And it's important to say that this programme is for anyone in the audio industry, and that includes presenters, producers, sound engineers, sound designers. We had a voiceover artist in our cohort. If it's audio, if you work in audio books, if it's audio, then yes, this applies, and they will try and match you with a mentor. What I'd like now, we've got the panel here. Hello, everyone. If you could all unmute yourself, that would be lovely, because I'd like to start with asking you all to tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your own personal experience of RAMP. What worked for you and what didn't? We'll go chronologically by date. We'll start with Glyn from 2022, please.
Thanks, Georgie. So I am, as Georgie says, I'm a content editor right now for BBC Audio. I oversee topical programmes for Radio 4 in Cardiff. When I joined RAMP, I was a producer. I was working on various podcasts. I was working on various programmes for Radio 4 and for the World Service. And I guess for me, I wanted to take the kind of next step in my career, I suppose. I'd been a producer and a senior journalist at the BBC for about 10 years or so. And I was really keen to do more and to basically to become an editor and kind of figure out how to take that step and to become a kind of leader within the organization. So that's what I was aiming to get out of RAMP. I guess, I mean, I'm now a content editor, so I guess that is somewhat successful. But I found the process really, really helpful. I had a mentor who was at News UK, and we had, I think about 7 or 8 sessions over the course of about 6 months. And yeah, it was really, really good. Really, really great experience.
Was there anything that didn't work for you, Glyn?
I mean, the biggest challenge for me was that my mentor was probably he was very senior, so it was quite a big gap between where he was and where I was. And so there were a few sessions, a few of those conversations where, I was going to talk about various things, and it was stuff that he couldn't probably quite relate to.
Right.
So that was a little bit of a challenge. But what was really helpful was that he actually introduced me to other people within the organization who I could talk to about that particular challenge, or who could sort of steer me on a particular question. So so that was probably the biggest challenge from my point of view.
That's lovely. And it's quite a good example of how not only does your network grow from your peer support group, but by making contacts or connections, sorry, I should say, with your mentor, he introduced you to other people in the industry. And that's really important too. Thank you, Glyn. Let's go to Andy now. 2023. Hello, Andy. Same question for you. I'd like you to tell us just a little bit about yourself and your personal experiences of RAMP, what worked and what didn't.
Cool. Hiya, I'm Andy Logue. I work for Heart Scotland within Global in Glasgow. And yeah, I did, like Georgie said, I did RAMP in 2023. And really, it was at the time when I was working with a radio station called MFR within the Bauer Media Network in Scotland as well. And it wasn't, I had moved into like a sort of middle management thing, but also there was a lot of changes that happened at the Bauer at the time. So my role went from executive producer to a breakfast producer. And there was a lot of changes within sort of my lifestyle. I hated and still do hate waking up early, albeit when you work in radio, you just have to wake up any time of the day, as I'm sure a lot of you understand. And my mentor was Adele Cross, who you'll see on this panel today, and was absolutely smashing for me. I was going through a lot of different things. I was living in a city I'd never been living in before, moved away from a lot of friends, a lot of family, albeit I do have a Canadian accent. I moved away from family a long time ago when I moved to Scotland in 2003. Moving when you're within the industry you're working in, when you're really close to a lot of people, can be difficult. And for me, it was. And I found that RAMP helped me to kind of not only overcome some personal conflicts within myself, but also helped me to, utilize my skills that I was overlooking, essentially. Wasn't terribly, even though I love karaoke, I'm very outgoing with my friends and with my family. I'll travel to, the middle of nowhere in Scotland on my own, working in a radio environment. I always looked down on myself and never thought I was actually as good as the people around me. I was working with, and still do work with, so many talented people. And it took me a long time to realize, like, I've worked in radio for 13 years. I mean, I must have some sort of skill value and skill level to bring to the table. And Adele really helped bring that out of me and help me just look at myself and be like, nah, stop talking shite. You're good at what you do. You wouldn't be here if you weren't anyways. And that was something I found really helpful. RAMP gave me a great support network. It is hard work. I found that, working commercial radio, or just radio in general, so much is changing on a daily basis. So what you have to do is make sure you work around it. Like if you do an 8, 9, 10-hour day, which, could be longer in any sort of job, you still have to work around and work really hard for RAMP, because what you put into it, you just get so much more out of it from that. And again, like, I had the best mentor. We both worked in breakfast radio, and it was just a perfect time for me. I was going into a job working as the breakfast producer for Jody at Breakfast on MFR, and I'd never taken on a breakfast job full time. I'd covered different shows here and there, but when you do something for a week or so, it never gives you the opportunity to get into a flow, to get into like a rhythm and a routine. And Adele, with the vast experience she has in breakfast radio, helped me, help me figure out how to get up at 4 a.m. and head up the hill and into MFR, we're based in Inverness, and help me to, still build just having fun and going out, because at the end of the day, like, if you're on breakfast radio, you're in bed at 8. And then if you're in a new city, you still have to, you still want to go out and make friends and have a good time. So as much as Ramp really helped me develop personally in my career, it also helped me develop personally in just getting out there into a new area and to living in a new place.
Brilliant. Thank you, Andy. I liked your point there that you made about your mentor bigging you up, basically, and that was something that I experienced as well. My mentor was Steph Hurst, and I came to her and said, I don't really know what I'm doing, and she really encouraged me and gave me a lot of confidence. So it's good to know that other people had that experience too. Naomi, let's come to you. 2024. Let's find a little bit out about you. And again, same question: what did you get out of Ramp? What were your challenges? Was there anything that didn't work, and what did work?
Yeah, thank you, Georgie. So hi, everyone. I'm Naomi Oiku. I'm currently a freelance radio and podcast producer, but my previous experience, I sort of got into the industry through student radio. So I was the chair of the Student Radio Association for 3 years. I was also a trustee of the Radio Academy. And then coming into the industry, I was an assistant producer at Virgin Radio, and then joined something else, built myself way up from assistant producer to junior producer to producer. So that was over a 4-year period. And then last year in November, I became freelance, and Ramp sort of came at the right time. So for me, like not last year, the year before, I was kind of contemplating applying for Ramp, but sort of held off for a year. But I think last year was sort of like the right time for me to sort of put myself forward and sort of get that support. So my mentor was Adam Uteman. He currently works at Real World. And with the program itself, I learned so much in terms of having, I think it was really positive having the cohort with you as well, and sort of going on that journey with you, as well as having a mentor. Having those 6 sessions were really good, because with me and Adam, we sort of split them over the sort of, we actually went past the 6-month period, because as you can imagine, things can get busy, but it was quite positive in terms of the meetings that we had. When I applied for the program, so they sort of ask you in the application what you want to get out of the program, which is really useful. So you sort of list like session 1, I sort of put I wanted to focus on like leadership. Another session was like networking as well. So as a mentee, you sort of work with your mentor, but you sort of put the work in terms of what you want to get out of the program itself. In terms of personal experiences, as I mentioned, had a really positive sort of cohort. Some of us are still in touch now, and it's sort of like we had like a WhatsApp group as well, which was really good, and that sort of community that we had. And like any question, no matter how big or small, we all felt comfortable to sort of ask each other, because we're all sort of navigating the industry. And as I mentioned earlier, obviously starting as a freelancer, I think it was the right time to put an application forward, and definitely helped me develop as a freelancer in the industry. And I think the sessions that I had with Adam, they were quite honest sessions. It was quite good because he kind of challenged me. So I'd come with I wouldn't say necessarily a problem, but I'd come with something and he would challenge and ask. Like, for example, I said to him, I think he sort of proposed applying for a full-time job, and I was a bit wary about applying because I was sort of navigating the freelance industry, and it was like the questions he was asking, it kind of makes you think differently how to approach different things. So having that support was really useful.
Was there anything that you found challenging?
Oh, I think 6 months wasn't enough. I think it's a lot to cram in those 6 months, and as a mentee, you need to be committed and put that work in. The action learning sets were great. The sort of workshops we had, meeting with a mentor for for those sort of 6 sessions were great. But I think it would have been good if we had it over a longer period, just because it's so much in those 6 months. But Adam was great because we didn't get those 6 sessions done in those 6 months, but we sort of met after and sort of made sure we did sort of complete those 6 sessions. So yeah, it goes so quickly.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And it's interesting, you've mentioned it as well, I think, and I know Glyn feels the same. Andy mentioned it too, and it's on my notes here. Putting the time in, you only get out of ramp as much as you put in. And it's interesting that you've both said that, and I think that's something that is really important. If you don't put the effort in, then you won't get as much out of the scheme. So you need to be prepared to be committed if you're going to apply. But I think as long as you are, you'll get lots and lots out of it. If everyone unmutes themselves, we can sort of talk more freely now. That would be lovely, because I want to ask about what you think the people in the webinar here who are considering applying would get out of this scheme. And I think it's important to say that this isn't just about a way of getting a better job or having a famous or influential mentor. This is about personal development. What are all your thoughts on that?
I think it's about specific challenges. I think if you've got I think the more specific you can be about the challenge that you're facing, and for me, it was about career progression, but actually it could, I think, equally be about somebody who wants to produce something different, whether that's a kind of something longer form or shorter form or live, or, whether it's something a bit different. I mean, the industry is constantly changing and evolving, and I think people's jobs are changing and evolving within that. So there could be a challenge within your individual job, or that you're facing a particular career moment, or a kind of you're eager to take a different path. Maybe you're sort of interested in recording audio or something else as well. So there's I think there's so much more to get out of it than just that kind of career progression thing.
Yeah. And Naomi, I mean, you were at a particular crossroads, weren't you? And that's often a great point for ramp.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I feel like with the ramp scheme, we did mention, obviously, it's putting that time in, but then I also think because having that sort of professional advice and that peer-to-peer support, and it's like it's kind of like making yourself vulnerable in terms of what you want to get out of the scheme. And sort of, I think for me, I kind of learned new skills, how to develop in the industry, but then also having that self-confidence. And I think with ramp, it's really good because the application is for people sort of midway through their career, because you sort of see mentoring programs that are focused on people just sort of starting off. So I think with ramp, it's so good and so important that you're recognizing that people do need support halfway through their career and they want to go in a different direction. So I think that's really good about ramp and how great it is to support people.
Andy, what are your thoughts on this?
With the cohort, I was with everyone. I think you just find that everyone is going through the same thing as you, no matter what level, what career path you're going down, what job you may be in, whether you're radio producer or podcast producer, or like which with the question mark. They have an audio area which you never knew about. One of the guys on our program worked for them, and you just find that everyone has very similar issues, that no matter what industry or what company you might be in, you'd be going through the very same thing as two or three other people within your group. And you find that once you see that and understand it, you have brilliant people to discuss avenues on how to whether it's a conflict or whether it's a project that you just don't know how to tackle, or if it's a whole new challenge. You got like 20 people you can really look to who have probably gone through something similar in their career up to that point too. So it's super helpful just having that support network. And And just friends, you know, just a laugh as well. Sometimes you just need to send a really good bit of audio that you've done, or a really good story that you've created, and folk would be just like, yes, well done, mate, you've done smashing there. So again, a great group of people just to make you feel good about the work you're doing. If you don't feel as though you're getting that acknowledgement within your the company you work for, you know, you got 20 people there, send it to them and they'll all big you up.
Yeah. Well, that brings me nicely to the importance of peer support and that peer support network, which is a huge part of RAMP. And I think we've all said how we've got WhatsApp groups with our particular cohort. And having done the first one, I've now met people from 23 and 24 as well at various events. Glyn, you were in the same cohort with me, so we were the originals.
Right.
Tell us about your thoughts on that peer support network and how we looked after each other.
Yeah, it's great, and continue to, I think, as well. You know, the WhatsApp group is still active, and as the guys say, you know, helping you kind of tackle the challenges, you know, you kind of face. Somebody before mentioned the kind of action learning sets, which are really helpful in terms of tackling specific problems and you know, getting other people's perspectives, or kind of challenging you, having your peers kind of challenge you on decisions you've got to make, which is really, really helpful. I think that, you know, from talking to other people, you know, it's great to be able to talk to people now. And when I'm in London, you know, I'm frequently see, you know, various people who we were in a cohort with around the building or around the city, which is really, really nice and really helpful. I know that opportunities have come from that. You know, people have collaborated together on various projects and gone on to kind of work with each other and things. So it's great to have that supportive network through the process and beyond, I would say. And it was lovely to see everybody at the Radio Academy Festival recently. You sort of gravitated towards each other and
we did, didn't we?
Catch up, which was very nice.
Yeah, that was, and I think it's a real testament to the scheme that coming up to 3 years on, our group, we do still check in with each other and like you say, put work each other's way, or opportunities, or you know, message each other and or meet up. Andy, how about for you with the peer support network? I mean, you've talked a bit about that, and you had a specific reason as well, coming, you know, not knowing anyone, being in a new city. But I mean, was there anyone nearby to you? Did you meet up in real life?
No, I was maybe about 300 miles away from everyone. So living in
Did you still feel supported? But
yeah,
at the end
absolutely.
of the phone,
Like, even though like there might be people who apply and, you know, you might be on the Orkney Isles or something, like, or you might be on the Isle of Man, which we did. We had someone from Isle of Man on our program too. And even though I was so far away from everyone, was never able just to nip around the corner and enjoy a, you know, get a coffee with everyone. It was still there. You know, there was a couple of us from Scotland. In fact, I worked next door to Ryan Gallagher. He was on my program that year too. And yeah, even though I was 300 miles away from everyone, it didn't feel like that. You could still pick up the phone, check in the WhatsApp. People were turning up weekly for the seminars and that. So you felt like it was a, you know, just a really good group of folk who were really supportive. And yeah, like I wouldn't, if you feel as though you live in the middle of nowhere, and if you feel as though you're not part of the London media landscape, even though like if you work for Bauer or you Global or BBC, like everything is based down there, there are still people up north and, you know, maybe down Cornwall and, you know, different areas of England and that just because you're in the middle of nowhere doesn't mean you can't take advantage of RAMP, the brilliant program and the amazing people that you meet, because all it does mean is I have 20 places to go to now when I'm looking for somewhere to go, or even people to work with. Like if we're doing, if ever, like I'm a staff member with Global, very lucky to be in such a privileged position like that. But if I was ever to go freelance, like and to go back, I never got into Ramp for the career. Like, I was lucky enough to join Ramp to get so much out of the brilliant Adele Cross, and we had so many great conversations, but career path, it was never really part of it for me. I so happened to get a new job after I finished Ramp, and I think I know for sure that doing Ramp helped me to into the new job as well. So, but yeah, like the amount of people you'll meet and the support network is fantastic, even if you live in the Scottish Highlands and you can get snowed in for weeks on end.
And I think that network grows as you know, as time goes on. Naomi, you've just, not relatively recently, not that long ago, graduated from Ramp. So tell me about 2024, because that's still quite a new cohort. Do you all keep in touch? How are you, how is your peer support network? How did you find that part of Ramp for you?
I found it really positive. Like, I enjoyed meeting new people in the industry, networking with them. And I think with a lot of jobs, sometimes they are London based, but I feel like with Ramp, it's quite inclusive and accessible to anyone in the country. So if you are a bit worried and thinking, oh, I can't get down to London because I'm far away, as Andy has just mentioned, like, you can literally apply no matter where you are. So don't feel afraid to sort of apply if you're not based in London, because I think Ramp's so good because there's sessions that are remote. They're all recorded if you can't make it, because obviously sometimes you can be busy. But there's also the opportunity to be able to meet in person as well. And I think the Radio Academy have been so supportive, especially as a freelancer. Like, they were really supportive with me in terms of even travel expenses. And I think sometimes people are afraid to sort of ask for that support. But I think, yeah, the Radio Academy have been so, but I can't fault anything in terms of what I've learned, but also what the Radio Academy have sort of given to me. But not just the Radio Academy, like we said, like the peer-to-peer support, even having that WhatsApp group, like I mentioned earlier, like asking a question, not being afraid to get an answer from someone in the group. And it's kind of that thing, even like we're celebrating job news. So there's someone who recently posted in the group who's just recently got a job, and it's kind of good. It's enlightening sort of having those sort of updates and sort of staying connected with each other. So even though that Ramp program is 6 months, utilize those 6 months, get as much out of it. But then also after that, you've got those sort of friends for life, you've networked within the industry, and it's been really positive. Yeah, it's been a great year.
We're going to have time for some questions shortly, about 1:45. So if you're participating and you're watching this and think, I've got a question, if you go to the Q&A tab, you can type your question in there. So start having a think about any questions that you've got for any of us, and we'll try and answer them as best we can. But I want to talk a bit about mentor matching now. And Naomi, particularly, I know you've got some interesting insights on this. I think you were somewhat surprised by your mentor to start with.
Yeah, it's nothing against my mentor. It was just when I completed the application. So when you're applying, I would say be as honest as possible in terms of what you want out of the mentoring scheme. So one of the questions, they asked me who I would ideally want to be paired up with. And in terms of career progression, like I want to progress in a more senior role and be influential to women of colour within the industry and sort of be that role model. And I've got a lot of role models that I have, Adele Cross being one of them. So Andy, you're really lucky to sort of have that support from Adele. And Lorna as well, who works at the BBC. So when I completed my application, I put Adele Cross, I put Nikki Logan. They're all women of colour who I strive to be, and I want to be as successful as them. So I got the email saying that I was successful and made it onto the programme this year. And I got paired with Adam, and I was like, oh, okay. Like it was a different pairing. I was a bit like, oh, the Radio Academy have asked me who I'd ideally want to be paired with, and I got paired with Adam. Adam's brilliant. He's been brilliant. I've loved every sort of moment with him and working closely with him. But yeah, I just didn't know what to do. But I kind of reached out to Aradna. Aradna's so honest, so open. So I reached out to her and I said, can we arrange a call? And I sort of asked her about the pairing. So if you are paired with anyone and you are not concerned, but you do have questions, then honestly, the Radio Academy are very open in terms of having that communication and talking to you. But Aradna said, she said to me, you have that community. You have influential women within the industry, and she's happy to introduce me to them and sort of connect me with them. But she said, I wanted to put you with someone that you wouldn't usually connect with. And I think with that, and sort of being paired with Adam, he even said that he learned so much from me and I learned so much from him, how we would both navigate through the industry. So even though it was a pairing that I didn't expect, I'm glad Aradna took that risk and put me with Adam, because I've learned so much. And as he said he learned so much from me. So yeah, it was positive. I was shocked, but no, it was all great.
Glyn, it's about trusting the process, isn't it? I mean, when we did it, there was no one before us, so there was nothing really to benchmark against, was there?
Yeah, for sure. That thing of kind of the people you wouldn't usually connect with. I think that's a really good phrase, and really helpful, I think, for framing Ramp. Actually, it's one of the big appeals to me is that it's pan-industry, and so you end up, certainly being, working in the BBC, you meet a lot of BBC people, and you kind of get quite kind of in the world of the BBC and the way that the BBC does things, and it is incredibly helpful, I think, to kind of break out of that a little bit and see how other organizations arrange themselves, how they do things. You can kind of, you get kind of challenged on, well, why don't you do it this way and why don't you do it that way? And I found that really, really helpful. So yeah, so I think I think somebody sort of broadly in that sort of sphere. So I think if you're interested in content and you're thinking more in terms of how you're going to develop yourself as a kind of content producer, then you definitely want somebody who's making content, but it could be from a very different place than you are. And equally in the worlds of kind of sound design or production management or whatever it might be, you can kind of it can be quite a broad person within that area. Perhaps somebody who's sort of slightly further down their career path than you are. But yeah, somebody who you wouldn't usually connect with, I think, is really it's a big plus
absolutely.
of what Ramp is.
At the time I was working at BBC Local, and so I was just in a kind of BBC bubble, and that was the only part of the radio industry I'd worked in, and I had my eyes really open to what was out there in terms of like independent production companies. And I've now made some great connections with people and companies I didn't know existed. It was really quite awakening for me in terms of, wow, there is so much out there within the audio industry. We're going to go to questions very shortly. We've got one in the Q&A so far. Start putting them in, please, into that Q&A tab, and just type your question in there, and we'll get to those in a few minutes. I just wanted to ask the panel one more thing before we go to some Q&A from everyone. I wanted to talk about these action learning sets. We've mentioned that expression a couple of times, and I know that Fran and Adele, when it comes to interviews and application processes and so forth, will explain a bit more and in more detail about what that is. But it's quite a different and powerful way of learning about yourself if you've never done it before. Andy, how did you find that action learning set workshops that you did within your cohorts?
They're quite like revealing, but like really beneficial. It was
just explain just very kind of briefly what we are talking about. Sorry, yeah, I haven't. If anyone's out there and goes, what are they on about? What is an action learning set?
It was we all jumped onto a call around lunchtime or something during the week, and it would be one person came up and said, right, this is what I have to do this week, and I'm having trouble X, Y, and Z. Any help would be much appreciated, sort of like layman's terms. And it was, I never put forward for any of the action sets. I only just like sat in and watched everyone sort of discuss. But it's just, for me, it was interesting to see minds just working and people just figuring out little things that actually we may never have thought of before. My God, I really wish I remembered doing these a bit better, because it was so long ago now. Actual learning set, when you gave me that, I was like,
But
oh my God, so we did do that.
Yeah,
So
they were
like,
longer for us, weren't they, Glyn? But I think it's important to say they were a safe space.
Yeah.
that's it. It was a safe space to discuss issues, conflicts, things that were happening within that moment in time, where you could have honest and open discussions, and super beneficial to the people who put problems forward. And of everyone in my year that took part in these ones, the thankfulness was like seeping through the WhatsApp groups. Like, people were really, really finding it so beneficial.
Did you find them beneficial, Glyn?
Yeah, so yeah, because I did take a problem to one of those action learning sets, and it was as you say, it was a safe space. I mean, the main thing,
I remember that, and I shall take it to my grave, because we all pledged, didn't we, not to say anything.
It's a coaching technique, basically. So it's the idea is that you ask the cohort ask you questions. As the person with the problem, they ask you kind of questions about it, and they don't really bring their own opinions. So it's kind of about challenging yourself and finding the answer for yourself in that problem, and it was incredibly helpful. It was I have a coach these days, actually, so it's a very sort of similar technique, where it's just kind of constantly kind of challenging and thinking about it, and thinking about that as a problem and approaching it in a really different way. I find it really, really helpful. Really, really helpful.
Naomi, how about for you and your cohort, the action learning sets? Was that something new to you as a learning technique?
Yeah, it was something new to me, and I think it was really good because you had the cohort, and the cohort were quite big, but we got split into different groups. And I think that was really useful, having that small group. And as Glyn said, like challenging each other, but then making you sort of think differently how you would approach something. So you sort of had like the facilitator that would facilitate that session, someone that would come with a problem, and then we just sort of sat and sort of listened to that. And then after that person came forward, we then sort of asked questions and kind of made them think a bit differently. But as you said, Georgie, like, it was a confidential sort of session. It was a safe space. You were able to take any problem, but you don't have to have a problem. But then at the same time, you're still learning from how people would deal with things and certain situations. So yeah, I found it really useful, and it was good to have that small sort of group, as opposed to having that big group, because it can be really overwhelming. So I think it was really good that it got split into smaller groups.
Right, let's go to some questions. We've got one here that says, what makes people successful in the application process? Why is someone chosen over another? That's a big question. Why did you think you were chosen? Naomi, why do you think you were chosen?
I spoke to someone the other day about this, actually, and they did ask me what makes a good sort of application. But I think just be honest, be truthful. And I think that kind of worked, I wouldn't say in my favour, but it kind of worked in terms of that interview with people. It's just being honest and making sure you know exactly what you want for the process. You're willing to sort of put that work in, even though you have a breakdown of what you want from each session. Those sessions can be flexible. You can adapt and change over those 6 months. But I would just say, yeah, be completely honest and think to yourself what you want from that session. But then also, what can you give other people being part of that programme?
Yeah, another couple of questions here that are very similar. So I'm gonna say those as well, because I think they all kind of go with that first question. I applied for RAMP on all of the other occasions that it's been open, and I've been unsuccessful every time. Each application I filled in based on my current mindset at the time. So why should I be encouraged to apply? Maybe it's clearly not for me, even though I feel I need to be part of the RAMP process. And then someone else has put, is there any more insight on what criteria applications will be assessed on? I've looked at the application, and considering the limited space for responses, any insight would be great. I think all those three go together very well in terms of, for me, I would say to all of those people, be not just honest, but specific. Be very specific. about, because I wasn't particularly, and I got pulled up on that in the interview. And I thought I'd messed it up, to be honest with you. I came away from that, went, there's no way I've got that.
I had exactly the same.
Did you?
Yeah.
Did you? That's really interesting. And it's because I wasn't specific enough about what I wanted at the beginning. And as Naomi said, that might change at the end. You might say, what I wanted 6 months ago is not what I want now. But that's the learning process of RAMP.
It's really important, I think, what you as an individual bring to it. As you said, I think that's really, really important, and to have a really clear idea of what you want to get out of it and how you're going to get that out of it as well. And so being really honest about that and really thinking about it beforehand, really thinking through, what those conversations might look and sound like, and what are the kind of questions that you have, and how do they all kind of feed together in that overall theme of making that step that you want to make, or overcoming that challenge that you want to overcome. I think that's would be really, really helpful.
Andy, why do you think you were successful? And what would you say to someone who's thinking about the criteria?
Yeah, I was surprised I got through. I didn't think I was, at that point of my career where I was deserved of getting into, this program. And I also thought that I talked so much shite in the interview that it was been like, away I go. And apologies for the swearing, but yeah, I think
we'll bleep it out.
Even though I did, feel as though I blab on and blab on and blab on and blab on, it got to the point where that when I was writing the when I was writing the process, writing the application, I just knew that I needed to be honest. I needed to be open. I needed to be, challenge myself, and go for something that, even though if it's I thought at the time was way above me, just go for it anyways, because you never know what is going to happen. If you get in, fantastic. If you don't get in, you just take that as a learning process, and then you build back and see where you've gone wrong, or maybe where you think you've gone wrong. And again, as Glyn and Naomi said, just be honest, like be open, and break down what you want to get out of it for yourself, and the knowledge that what you actually want to get out of it is not what you're going to get out of it. You're going to get out way more than you even expected in the first place. So when you do the application, I think just bullet point it, look at what you've been doing recently, where you want to get to, and just try and find the things that you don't really want to speak about, to be honest. Like RAMP is about opening yourself up to your mentor.
But being vulnerable as well, isn't it?
I think it's being vulnerable. Yeah,
being vulnerable.
You have to open yourself up. Yeah. And if you break that down, open yourself up a bit. By opening yourself up, you're going to help yourself when you get into RAMP.
Naomi, what advice would you give to, particularly this person here who says they've been unsuccessful and they've applied the 3 other times before? They feel they need to be part of the RAMP process, but they're worried it's not for them. They haven't actually said how many years they've had in the audio industry, unless they're the same person who's then put, it sounds like a lot of you have a lot of years of experience before applying. I'm closer to the minimum years of experience. How detrimental is that to the application? I didn't find it detrimental to the application. I was, I think, only about 5 years or so into the audio industry when I applied. Yes. Yeah.
I think I was the same in terms of 5 years. But if this person is at the beginning of their career, there are so many other mentoring programs out there. And I'd also, if they feel like as they said, their application's been unsuccessful in the past, I would also email the Radio Academy and maybe ask for feedback on their interview or the application itself, just so they have an idea of what sort of direction to go forward through moving forward. But I actually just wanted to add, because someone did ask me the other day in terms of how I broke down those sessions in my application form, and I've got it written down here. So my sessions that I sort of proposed or wanted to get out of it was like utilising my skills to be a successful producer and what to do to strive for the next role, how to network successfully, so the do's and don'ts and career advice, building a brand and advice on how to be a more creative producer, leadership skills, and focusing on how to strive towards a more senior role. So there were kind of ideas in terms of what you could get out of the session. But yeah, like Andy has said, have a think exactly what you want, structure it out, be more specific, and that will help with your application process.
We've got one here. Hi, everyone. This has been great. I'm so pleased you've enjoyed it and it's been helpful. Thank you. Do all of the in-person meetups take place in London? They did in our year. I don't know if that has been the same for 23 and 24.
I would say though, I would say our year also was affected by COVID. So we were, the tail end of COVID. So we didn't meet up until basically the end of the program.
No.
And as the other guys have said really clearly, I don't think geography should be a barrier to applying for RAMP.
No.
It absolutely did. My mentor was in London and the sessions took place in London. We did a lot of it remotely. We did some of the sessions remotely as well. And we had, I think, 1 or 2 sessions in London in our year.
I did all my sessions remotely. I'm in Suffolk. I'm in East Anglia, and my mentor's in Yorkshire. So yeah, I don't think actually all 4 of us. I don't think any of us are London based, are we? No. So
geography isn't a hamper to, like, technology these days is so great. You can Adele is in London and I was in Inverness, is like the 2 furthest cities apart on the British Isles, and I was down for the first part and down for the end, but between it, Zoom was brilliant. And also, if you're thinking of applying and you don't know if you can get the support, speak to your line manager within your company. Like, my former boss was smashing. Like, he encouraged me to take part in RAMP and helped me take part in RAMP. He put time aside. So if you have a boss who can help you, like, you might as well ask. Like, all you're going to get is a not this time, but you never know.
You never know. Yes, just to follow up, this person who's been unsuccessful has been in the industry for 15 years plus. So that's not the issue that particular person is having. I've had a message from Adele Cross, who is our head of judges, to just reiterate as well, if you're thinking about this program, it's important to remember that this is mentoring, it's not coaching. And they are 2 very different things. So it may be that if you haven't been successful before, it could be that you maybe need coaching, and that's something that you could try and look for in another scheme or somewhere else, and maybe mentoring isn't for you. What ratio of people who apply to people who get on? What is the ratio of people who apply to the people who get on? Well, that's kind of difficult to say because it depends on how many people apply. There's a limitless amount of people who can apply, but there are 20 places. So that's kind of as much as we can tell you with that. There are 20 places up for grabs, but it could be hundreds of people apply. It could be, whatever. There's been different levels of amounts of people who have applied over the different years. I should imagine it's gone up because it's becoming more and more established. So difficult to say, but if you go for it, then you're looking at one of 20 places. That's the last of our questions. Thank you for the questions in the chat. And thank you to the panel as well. We've just got a couple of minutes just to say that applications are open now. They close on the 7th of November at 1 to midnight. Can you all hear my cats meowing in the background? They're both going crazy. So apologies for that. Interviews commence from the 2nd of December, the week commencing 2nd of December. The cohort is announced in January. The induction is February next year. It's a 6-month scheme and you will graduate by July 2025. The link to apply is on the Radio Academy website, and you can find out more details there. Glyn, Andy, Naomi, thank you so much for joining us and giving us some insight into your experiences of RAMP. I think we're probably going to get chucked out at 2, but just in case we don't, just very briefly, in one sentence each, why should somebody apply? Glyn?
Because it's just a great experience. It's a great experience. You get to learn so much about the industry, meet some fabulous people. Yeah, all of the above.
Andy?
Yeah, you meet some great people, you learn new skills, and you just chill out with fantastic folk when you get to meet them in person.
And Naomi, why should people apply?
Just to echo what Glyn and Andy said, you meet new people, you challenge yourself, help develop new skills like self-confidence, and network with people. And I was just going to say, if anyone does have any questions, just sort of drop me a message. I'm happy to talk to people about their application process if they do need any support.
Brilliant. Thank you all so much. Thank you to everyone who's been on the webinar, and to Chris in the background looking after things, and to Adele and Fran as well. radioacademy.org. Go on there. You'll find all the details of RAMP and the 2-part application. And if you have got any questions, then you can email. There's a link to email the RAMP inbox as well, and we can answer those. Thank you all very much.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Yes, good luck to everyone. Good luck if you're going to apply. Thank you.